Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of 247 DIY. I know I've been away for a while. I've just had a lot going on, and there's a lot to get you guys caught up with here on the WRX, and that's what we're going to be jumping into today. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be picking right up from where the last episode left off. If you remember right, when we took it out for the quick test drive, there was a pretty aggressive vibrating type noise under the front end of the car. Pretty sure I know what it is, so we're going to be sorting out that noise today. Car's going to be getting a wash. We need to add some heat sleeving to the stainless steel power steering lines that run close to the downpipe. We're going to be replacing the factory U-brace under the front end with a tubular brace, as well as creating a little bit of underhood clearance that I didn't know was an issue before, but I just noticed it the other day. So without dragging this intro on too long, let's go ahead and get into it.
And like I said in the last video, one of my big concerns was the kind of harsh and kind of almost vibration noise I was hearing. I started poking around underneath the car here, and right there, the downpipe is contacting the transmission cross member here. So first thing I'm gonna do is undo the bolt for the downpipe here and see if I can manually get some clearance, because this pipe has never hit before. But I did switch to those Cartboy urethane exhaust hangers, which did bring the exhaust up quite a bit. So as a worst case scenario, I should be able to remove this rear cross member for the transmission support, and we'll just notch that bit of metal, because it shouldn't take too much. We'll just notch it out to get some clearance, because I did already have to do it back here on the support for the drive shaft. It was just contacting the exhaust here. I removed a little bit of material here on the bottom of the bracket. I didn't want to remove too much, so then I also took the exhaust off a while ago. After, I think 2 episodes ago, I took this back down and I just laid a 3/8 extension across it and give it a couple hits with a hammer, and that put a nice, rounded divot across the exhaust, so there's plenty of clearance there now. Alright, so we got that cross member in the vise. You can see here the paint pen, the area where that downpipe was hitting. The mark I made's pretty generous, so we're not going to cut that much out, but that's kind of our guide for the curve that we need here on this piece. So I'm going to have to get, because of the angle of this, I'm going to have to get a little creative with the angle grinder, but let's see what we can do. So there we go. I ended up smoothing a lot of it out with the flat disc on my angle grinder, but all in all, came out pretty good. I'm just going to hit that with some paint, and we'll throw it underneath and see if we get the proper clearance now. Alright, and there we go. Got plenty of clearance there between the downpipe and the transmission cross member. So we're good to go ahead and put this thing on the ground, and I'm going to get this out and give it a bath, get this 6 years of dust off of it. Alright guys, so you're just going to have to bear with me here for a minute. My microphone came unplugged during recording some of this video. It does come back a little while later on, but for now you're just going to have to deal with a voiceover. So what we've got here is some DEI heat sleeving that I picked up for the stainless steel power steering lines, the braided ones that I installed from the rack to the new power steering pump a while back. You can see here that it's a hook and loop style, which is nice because I won't have to disconnect the power steering lines. And all this is going to do is it's going to protect those lines as they route up close to the up pipe. It generates a lot of heat, and I just wanted to make sure that they had some added protection.
And here you can see how they are right now. These are the stainless steel lines. You can see the up pipe right there and just how close they route to it as they work their way up over the frame rail. And here's the finished product. I didn't film the actual install just because there's not a lot of room up in there to get the camera. But you can see here that the heat sleeving is installed, and it's going to protect these lines nicely from the heat generated by the up pipe. And here's just a quick view of how it looks routing up into the engine bay. And on to the next project. I removed this factory U-brace from under the front end of the WRX a while back, mainly just because it was really rusty and kind of an eyesore, so I took it off. In the meantime, I read up on a lot of stuff, and there seems to be a lot of arguments on whether or not this is for chassis bracing, or what the general agreement seems to be amongst the most people out there is that this was added on, at least here in the States. My understanding is not all of the worldwide market for Imprezas had these, but definitely they were here in the States. And it seems to be that it's for crash safety. In the event of a front-end crash, this brace people seem to think that it will direct the engine, the frame rails, and the engine compartment downward, rather than allowing that engine and engine compartment to be able to be pushed upwards towards the dash area. Now, I'm not too concerned about crash safety here with the WRX. I mean, I've already removed the front crash beam in order to fit the intercooler in there, so I'm okay with leaving this off. However, I don't want to just leave it off and have absolutely nothing to replace it. So I was looking around doing a little bit of research, and there's a couple of different companies, one of which is Oswald Performance, and they make a triangulated brace that picks up all of these points from the U-brace, and they crisscross back and forth across that middle section there, and it does actually provide quite a bit of chassis bracing. However, that part, is running about $700-800, and last I looked, they're not even offering them on their website anymore. But I'm not willing to spend $800 on some chassis bracing that is not essential. So what I do want to do is, at the very least, put a H-brace in. There's a few different companies that make them, like Cusco and Megan Racing and those. But I actually found a part on Amazon that there was a sale going on, and it was about a quarter of the price of the other ones. So I ended up snagging it up, and what I'm going to do is just go with that. I didn't feel the need to spend a ton of money on a name brand one. So the audio here is going to pick back up to the original audio, and it's going to pick right up here with this brace that I picked out off of Amazon. Or for about $60, I found this DC Sports 4-point brace on Amazon, which not too bad. It looks like the normal price is about $80. Like I said, I found it on Amazon for about $60. It still hits the same 4 points as your typical H brace. It's just not in that standard H pattern. But you can see that while these two lower points connect to the inner control arm bushing bolts, the upper ones here bolt on the bottom side of this brace. So what we are going to have to do when we install this, I've looked at it, and we might be able to do two things. We're either going to have to add a metal standoff for the width of this brace, or it almost looks like we can, if I can put these in a vise and rotate them. I'm not sure if I can. I'll take a look at it and see what I think once we get underneath there. We may be able to rotate these, and then they may actually be able to bolt right to the mounts. But for now, the one thing I don't like is that this is red. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint it to match the other gold components that are on the vehicle right now. Alright guys, so that's the 4-point brace all finished up. I ended up just giving it a final coat with some 2K clear. I figured the 2K is going to give a lot more protection from chipping and things like that, because this is going to be on the underside of the vehicle. But let's go ahead and talk about hardware for a minute. Alright, so one thing I like to do when I've been doing a lot of these projects on this car is kind of refresh a lot of things. If I'm unbolting a part and either painting it or replacing it with a new part that's not, you know, old and corroded or rusty or anything, I just like to throw new hardware on. Unfortunately, I got a little confused when I was looking at the parts diagram. I thought I was ordering 2 of these ones. I ended up ordering 2 of these ones. These ones are farther forward on that U-brace. But they are the same size, they're the same head, they're the same thread pitch. And you can actually see on this one, I ended up marking this when I was under the car. This is just below where the threads start to engage the captive nut on the bracket. And when you put these together, you can actually see that that would be the beginning of the threads on this one. So this one's just too long. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut both of these down to size. I'll give them a little angle on the top there, and I'll be right back with you. Alright, so there's those cut down to size. I left them just a little bit long because the bracket now on the bar that bolts between the bolt, and I'll explain these in a second, these spacers, is creating a little bit more material that wasn't there before, so I just left them a little long. Now, because that U-brace is not going to be there, we're just going to throw these spacers in there. I ended up ordering these from the McMaster catalog. They're a little pricey, but being that I didn't have any just like solid stock on hand that I could drill a hole in to make a spacer, it was a pretty quick option for that. I like that they ended up being almost the same width as the head. They're very substantial, so it's not just like I cut down a piece of pipe and threw that in there. I think these are going to work great. They're going to look nice and do exactly what they should as spacers. And then as for the bolts for the rear 2 mounting points, those are on the way. They just got a little delayed in shipping. I want to go ahead and throw this up under the car now, so I'll just replace these when they end up arriving. Let's go ahead and get this brace thrown up under the car. I'm actually pretty excited to see how this looks under there. So there you can see the spacers on there. They do look a little weird, a little out of place, I think, but for the time being, it's just gonna have to do. One thing I wanna do in the future, that'll be a huge addition to the shop here. It's high on my want list, but not high on my need list, which is why I haven't gone about and done it yet. But I do wanna get a welder for the shop, which means I could redo this bracket, so instead of that tab being down here, that tab could be up here. And then I could also then go ahead and triangulate that into the remaining mounts where that brace was, kind of like the Oswald Performance one, but that's $700 to $800 piece, which I just think is absolutely ridiculous for some chassis bracing that, for argument's sake, is not very crucial. To spend $800 on that would be ridiculous, but potentially could make my own, triangulate some points, and tie back into these leftover points from that U-brace. But all in all, I really like how it looks. I like it's color matched. In the future, as we start to do suspension upgrades, spoiler bars, I'll do those in the gold as well to match. And then one big thing I really want to do is, you can see how real rusty and nasty these stamped steel control arms are. I really want to get those swapped out with the aluminum STI ones. I think that'll be a really nice piece on there, clean up a lot of this suspension stuff here.
But that's a project for another year, another time, further down the road. Right now we're just trying to get this on the road, and yeah, I really like how this looks. And then on to a little project that kind of spiraled. I noticed, and it just kind of, I don't even know why it caught my eye, but I noticed that the back of the connector here for the MAF sensor was actually contacting the hood again right here. Way back when I had this on the road, you can see I used the hammer to make a little bit of clearance here, but it's actually still making contact. And I don't want to do that method again because I got a little overzealous, and I don't know if I can pick it up here in the reflection on the camera, but I actually put a little dent in the hood. Not super noticeable, but obviously not something that I want to risk doing again. So I've been trying to kind of redesign this setup I have here. Initially, I just loosened the connections, and I pushed down on this, retightened the connections, and I used a little bit of that orange grease you've seen me use in the past for witness marks. And it wasn't touching the hood anymore, so I wanted to see how much clearance I had. So I just put a piece of, average size cardboard on top of here with some of that grease. And when I shut the hood, it absolutely smashed that cardboard right up against the hood. So a piece of cardboard's thickness is not going to cut it. The engine's going to move, or that's still going to hit. It probably wouldn't be the end of the world, but I don't want it to hit under any circumstance. So originally this setup was 245s. This goes down to the cold air intake. So that was 145, and then another 45 there, and then that went into the MAF tube. So I thought, if I started cutting a little bit away from these, I could, bring them down, which would bring this down. And then unfortunately, that old adage, measure twice, cut once, I cut too much material in the wrong direction. And if you see where the bend is on that, I can't remove any more material and still be able to get a clamp on there. Ideally, the best way to run this would be, because you can get a lot of movement out of this, would just be a straight coupler would go on there, but the lines here from the ABS module will get in the way. So what I did find on HPS's website, that's where I get pretty much all of my silicone and clamps and stuff from. They have this is 2 3/4. They have a 2 3/4 offset, so it comes out 2 3/4, just does a little jog up, and then it comes back straight, still 2 3/4. So that should get me over the ABS module, but still keep me low, because instead of these 245s taking up a lot of room, that should just kind of bring me up enough where then I can still push this down, and hopefully that'll give me enough clearance. If it doesn't, what I could do is rotate this down. A lot of people run it that way for the blow-through style MAFs. The only issue I'm reading up on is that can potentially change the tune, because now the MAF sensor on the inside of the pipe is in a different part of the airstream here. I'm skeptical as to how much of a difference that would make, but if I can avoid issues with the tune by simply just coming up with a little bit of a redesign here, I want to try that first before we go ahead and rotate this MAF tube. But that coupler won't be here for a few days, so I'll film that when I end up doing that. Alright guys, so I got a little bit ahead of myself. I didn't film it, but that 2 3/4 offset came in from HPS. You can see how it kind of comes out, and then it jogs up over the ABS unit here. It does touch, but because it's the soft silicone here touching these lines, I'm not worried about it. And it doesn't look like it changed very much. But like I said before, I couldn't even get the thickness of one piece of cardboard on here. So I went ahead and I kept testing it, and I was able to get the thickness of 3 pieces of cardboard, and it just barely touched the hood. So I'm happy with that. I think that should be more than enough room to make sure any engine vibration and movement. The connector here on the mass airflow sensor shouldn't touch the hood. So I forgot to film an outro. That's going to do it for this episode. We wrapped up a few things on the WRX. We're getting closer to it being finished. It's a little weird to say because I'm actually filming this in the future. The car's been being driven quite a bit. The only thing I can say is be on the lookout for a lot of videos coming out on the WRX. When I say a lot, 3 to 4 more episodes on the WRX to get you guys up to date. If you are a follower of the channel and you've kind of been asking yourself, where have I been? I know I haven't uploaded in quite a long time. If you had asked me a year and a half ago if I was at this point gonna up and completely change careers and start from zero, I would have told you no way. But that's what happened. Life comes at you quick, and I decided to make a career change, and that's what I've been focused on, was the new job, getting all my training and everything like that done and out of the way,
So I wasn't doing a lot of editing. I was filming a lot, however. I have a lot filmed that's just sitting on a hard drive waiting to be edited and uploaded. So moving forward, I should have some good chunks of time on my hand where I can get editing done, and video should start coming back out, guys. So if you've been following for a while, I really appreciate you guys following, but you can expect a lot more videos coming out, a lot more regular uploads. I don't know if I'm going to go back to like the weekly uploads that I was doing for a while, but at least every other week. More than likely with videos. So as always, guys, if you like the video, please hit that like button. Feel free to leave a comment below, and if you're not subscribed already, please go ahead and subscribe. Thanks.